Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Leah here, and I know it's been well over a year since you've last seen me, but I'm back, so yay. But today I was going to be recommending some books written by black authors about black people, or they have black protagonists, and I'm gonna be recommending that for, well, it's Black History Month, obviously, February, and then also on top of that, in case you haven't heard, there's this readathon called Blackathon, which is going on, and you can look it up on YouTube and find out all the information about that. But basically, it's a readathon going on the entire month of February, where people are reading books by black authors about black people and things like that. So I figured I would come at you with some recommendations and things like that. So before I get into that, I'm just going to let you guys know that I'm probably going to be doing some reading vlogs pertaining to what I'm going to be reading, what I think of the books as we go about the process, and stuff like that. So we'll see. But I'm first gonna start with I put these into categories. I have 5 different categories of books here, and so I'll start with my personal favorite. I am a fantasy lover, so I think I'll show you the fantasy stack first. And just so you guys know, I'm showing the lesser known books and not the really popular books like Children of Blood and Bone or The Bells, which I've read them. They're amazing, and I highly recommend you go check them out. But without further ado, let's get on with the rest of this video. So first I have to recommend A Blade So Black by L.L. McKinney, and I've read this book around the time when it first came out, and it's really great. It's a Alice in Wonderland retelling. Well, it's inspired by Alice in Wonderland with a Buffy the Vampire Slayer twist. And if that doesn't have you sold, then I don't know what else to tell you, my guy. This is it. I've read it and I really enjoyed it, and it leaves you wanting more. And even though we've got a cover for the next book and a due date for when the second one's supposed to come out, I still feel some type of way because I look at this book and I'm just like, feelings, lots and lots of feelings. But that's basically what this book is about. And also, one thing I liked about it is how the main character is a teenager, and she seems very real because she has to deal with teenager problems like curfews and friends and things like that, secrets and schoolwork and all those other things. And then also on top of that, she has to deal with her parents. They're around, like her mom is anyway, and she has to deal with her mom always getting on her like, you didn't do the dishes, and are you defrosting my chicken in the microwave? Like, stuff like that. And it's really entertaining to read, and it also makes her a very relatable character. Next, I have Dread Nation by Justina Ireland, and this is like a history with a fantasy type twist, I guess you could call it. And I don't know if you could call it fantasy or not. It's like zombies, but it's in the Civil War era. So it's basically like after the Battle of Gettysburg. If you've taken history class, you should know what that is. Then the dead start to rise, and so what they do is they take the Native American people and the black people, and they have them go to these schools to teach them how to kill the zombies. So basically all the POC in this Civil War era novel, historical spin-off novel, are basically being trained to be zombie killers. And it's really interesting. I haven't read this one yet, but I'm hoping to read this for Blackathon because the concept has always interested me, and as someone who loves like The Walking Dead and zombie shows and movies, Train to Busan, like, I feel like this will be right up my alley, especially since there's black people in it, you know, representation. I gotta live for it. And that's all I have for the fantasy category. And so next, what I'll be moving on to are the contemporaries, which are like love, life, or I guess you call it just slice of life, stuff like that, relationships, and all that jazz. So first I have Tiffany Sly Was Here by Dana L. Davis, and this book is about this girl named Tiffany whose mom recently died of cancer, and she's sent to go live with her dad, but she doesn't know if it's her dad or not because before she leaves, this man approaches her saying that he thinks she's his daughter, so she has like a week to get to know this dude in another state, but also dealing with the fact that in 7 days, this other guy's gonna come to collect and ask for a DNA test. And so it's just who she encounters, like finding out more about her family and things like that. And I finished this today, actually. It was really good. I enjoyed it a lot, and there were certain aspects to it that just added a new level of depth to the story that I wasn't expecting. So I recommend this. And also, it talks a lot about mental health, religion, and not like the you should convert, but like it addresses certain things with religious people, I should say. And then there's also the aspects of family and people with health issues, disabilities, stuff like that. And then also there's a strong family aspect. And it's really interesting because throughout the whole novel, you're hanging on the suspense like, is this dude her dad or is the other guy her dad? Who is it? And so you don't really know. And then her dealing with her anxiety and her mental health. It's really interesting to see. Next, I have Calling My Name by Liara Tamani, which is basically a teenage girl going through her life, growing up, basically. This is a novel of growing up, and she's trying to discover who she is, navigate her life with her boyfriend, I believe, yeah, and parental relationships and all that. That's basically what this is. It's just growing up in a nutshell. And I haven't heard much about this one, so I really want to put this out there for you guys. If any of you have read it, let me know, because I don't know, like, I haven't heard much about this one, so we'll see. And finally, for my contemporary list, this falls under romance more, is Pride by Ibiza Boy, which is a Pride and Prejudice retelling with an Afro-Latinx girl, or main character, and a black boy in the Bronx? Or, no, Brooklyn. Somewhere up there in New York, but yeah, they're from Brooklyn. And it's Pride and Prejudice. It's a retelling with black people, Afro-Latinx people. That's basically what it is. I mean, I've never read the classics because I'm not a classic person, so but I'm excited to read this and try this out, even though I'll probably never ever read Pride and Prejudice or anything by Jane Austen. Sorry, not sorry. Next category I have is history. So this is more historical stuff like slavery, Underground Railroad, and black people in real life. And so first I have is Homegoing by Yaj Yassi, and this is a story of two African sisters, one of which is sold into slavery in the Americas, while the other manages to stay in Africa, and how it's the story of their lives and their descendants' lives, and how their family tree trickles down history and goes through time, and how it weaves together and everything comes full circle. And this is one I'm really excited to read because I really enjoy the concept, and I feel like anybody that's African American could pick this up and just like relate to it or at least get it. Or I feel like it's just one of those types of novels that's like it could be you and it probably is you, and it's just so much in it, and I feel like it has really good potential, and I've heard nothing but great things about this, so I'd highly recommend checking this out. And next I have The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead, but in this novel it's basically about this girl who's a slave, and then a new slave is bought and brought over to her plantation, and he tells her about this place called the Underground Railroad. But in this novel, the Underground Railroad isn't a metaphor, it's a literal underground railroad. And so these two slaves try to escape together so they can be free on this Underground Railroad, and they're being chased by a bounty hunter and all these other things. It sounds really interesting, especially considering he took the metaphor and made it literal. So I want to see how that plays out in the story. Next, we have the category which I call the mystery thriller category, and with that we have My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. I know I just killed that name, my bad. My bad. But anyway, basically, it's about this girl who is a doctor, or no, she's a nurse, and her sister has this bad habit of killing her boyfriends, and so her sister is the one who always calls her whenever she kills one of her boyfriends to help her clean up the mess. So she's left dealing with that, but the sister well, not the sister who kills people, but the main character, she suddenly like falls in love and starts growing feelings for this doctor who works at her office, but the doctor guy likes her sister, and she's just like having to deal with that, like, I like you, but you like my sister, and I know she's crazy, but you don't. And so it's just kind of like back and forth, and I hear it's a good dark comedy if that's what you're into, and also it's pretty short too, so this seems very interesting. Next, I have Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this is the story about two teenage girls who are best friends, and the school year starts, but one of the best friends doesn't show up for school, and while the other one is looking around, investigating, asking people, no one seems to care that this girl is missing and has been gone for, like, I think it's months before they find anything out or something like that. But basically, that's what the story is about. Her best friend is missing and she's trying to find her. And so this is like a riveting story. It's like a mystery, it's thriller and suspense because you don't know what's going on or what could have happened. I mean, this takes place in the real world, and as we know, people go missing all the time. And so thinking about a story like this that's real for someone out there in this country, out there just having to deal with this and live with this, is really interesting and compelling because it's like, imagine the emotions you would feel if it was your best friend or your sister or your cousin or someone you knew who was gone, and you try and tell people or try and get help, and no one gives that to you. It's really interesting to think about, and I feel like this is a good one to look at our society in America, and also like the treatment of Black people when it comes to people coming up missing or anything like that in our society. And finally in this category, I have Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. And I don't know if I call this like a mystery thriller. I mean, it's told in verse, so it's short perks. If you need a short book to read, this is one of those. But it's more like a revenge story. So I think the suspense will probably be in why is he getting revenge. I don't know too much about this book, honestly, but basically the premise is that the whole novel takes place in an elevator ride, and this boy has a gun to go get revenge for some family member because reasons. But honestly, I feel like that's all you need to know. The whole book takes place in an elevator, and he's deciding on if he's gonna go shoot this guy or not. And I feel like that's a really interesting look into the psyche, and I think it'll be an interesting read for Black History Month. So we'll see how this goes. And finally, I have what I call the social justice category, and these two books have to do with police brutality and the treatment of Black people in America, or at least part of the treatment. I mean, that's a whole other history lesson. But anyway, first book is Tyler Johnson Was Here by J. Coles, and this book is about two brothers, and one of them ends up getting shot and killed by the police, and the other one has to deal with the aftermath and the grief and trying to navigate his way the through life, basically the grief and loss of his brother, and everything like that. That's what this one's about. And then the second one is Dear Martin by Nick Stone, and this is about a boy who goes to a predominantly white school, and there's a lot of racial tensions and behaviors that aren't the best that go on, and basically for him to cope and deal with it, he writes letters to Martin Luther King, like asking for help, kind of like diary entries and things like that, and it's just him growing as a person and going through this experience. So I thought this would be a really interesting one too, and again, it is short, so I definitely am excited for that because I can fit in a lot more books because as you know, there's only 28 days in this month, which kind of sucks for my TBR because I want to read all of these, but I know most likely I'm not going to be able to. So, you know, it's give and take. But there you have it. Those are my book recommendations for the Blackathon. So I hope you check out some of those books. And before I go, though, I'll give out a shout out a few honorary mentions, like The Bells, a sequel called The Everlasting Rose by Danielle Clayton is coming out March 5th. Children of Blood and Bone, I know I mentioned that earlier in this video. I really love that book. You gotta go read it. It's a really good. There's Beast Made of Night by Tomi Onyebuchi, and the sequel called Crown of Thunder. That's a fantasy African-inspired series, which would be really cool if you're interested in that. There's also this book called Well Read Black Girl, which has a lot of excerpts and excerpts from works by other Black women. And it's got poetry, it's got short stories, novel excerpts, fantasy, contemporary, whatever you want, they have it. And it's just like little excerpts of those main works in the novel. So you can kind of sample things and look around and find things you like, or be connected to authors who you've never heard of potentially and get exposed to their works. So I'd recommend those as my honorary mentions. But as always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!